The information provided by Trading Forex Price Action to you does not constitute personal financial advice. The information provided is of a general nature only and does not take into account your individual objectives, financial situation, or needs. It should not be used, relied upon, or treated as a substitute for specific professional advice.
Midweek Analysis.
Hey guys, this is a midweek analysis for August 4th of 2021. Okay, we'll start off with the dollar-yen pair. This is the monthly chart. We'll start off with an overview. So ultimately, I'm still expecting price to reach this 101 pivot low right here. But before that, I was talking about the pullback to 104, then to 109, and then down to this low. So in the long term, I'm short bias right back down to this 101 pivot low. However, on the weekly chart, since there was a weekly short trade that formed in this area about 3 weeks ago, and I'm waiting for another weekly long trade to form so I could gauge its strength against the last weekly short trade. In the short term, I am neutral biased. Okay, let's talk midweek price. Okay, this is a weekly chart. Let me run you by the setup I've been looking at for the past couple of months. So last weekly long trade that formed was right here with a stop loss at this pivot low right here. So if you recall, I took a long entry right up to this 109 level right here. And at this 109 level, I took out the entire position due to the possibility that this weekly long trade hit its main target at a strong monthly downward trend line. Then the following week at this area right here, if you recall, I was mentioning there was still a lot of long momentum left on the lower time frames, so we could expect another run up. And then as price fell down at these areas right here, although price was falling, there were no signs of this long momentum waning. And thus soon after at this pivot right here, there was a strong daily long trade that formed with a stop loss at this pivot low right here. So if you recall, I took a long entry. However, I took out 90% of my position at this level right here due to the possibility that this last weekly long trade already hit its target, thus possibly applying short-term short strength on this pair. However, soon after on the daily chart, there were consecutive weak daily short trades that formed over and over. And if you recall this type of price action where there's a strong long trade, then consecutive weak short trades is a common price action setup that shows short-term long strength. And thus I left 10% of my position in from the last daily long trade I took right here. And at this pivot right here, there was a strong monthly downward trend line. And so I took out another 5% out of the long position. Then roughly 3 weeks ago, there was a relatively strong short trade that formed right here. And thus I was mentioning if I get a pullback right up to these 110.50 levels, I may take a short trade with a stop loss at this pivot high and its main target being right back down here. However, on the following forecast, I mentioned I will not be taking this pullback short entry in order to keep the entries on this pair conservative for the moment. And so at this point, what I'm looking for is another weekly long trade to form so I can measure its long strength against the last weekly short trade's short strength. And if this long trade is stronger than the last short trade, then I'm willing to take a long trade with a stop loss at this hypothetical long trade's pivot low stop loss level right here, and its main target being at the last weekly short trade's pivot high. And conversely, if this short trade is stronger than this last weekly long trade, then I'll be waiting for a pullback as much as possible so I could take a short entry with a stop loss at this pivot high right here, and its main target at the hypothetical long trade's pivot low stop loss level, and possibly extension targets at the previous weekly long trade stop loss level at this pivot low right here. Alright, so let me explain to you why I didn't take this short trade on this pullback to this 110.50 levels right here. Alright, so let me just get rid of these. Alright, initially I was planning to take a short trade on this pullback to this 110.50 levels right here with a stop loss at this pivot high right here and its main target being right down here. Now the reason why I was initially targeting this pivot low right here was because the last daily long trade that formed was right here with a stop loss at this level. And thus, since a weekly short trade formed, if I were to be trading aggressively, I would have taken this trade right back down to the last daily long stop loss level. However, considering we were entering the month of August, in which trading liquidity often dries out, I chose to take a conservative trading strategy, in which again I would be waiting for another weekly long trade to form, so I could gauge its strength against the last weekly short trade. And if this weekly long trade is weaker than the last weekly short trade. At that point, I'll wait for a pullback as much as possible so I could take a short trade right back down to the hypothetical long trade's pivot low stop loss level, with again a stop loss at this weekly short trade's pivot high right here. Okay, so in this way, there's styles of trading in terms of aggressiveness, and the way I decide whether I'll be aggressive with my entries or conservative with my entries is through the overall market environment. Now again, during the month of August, the liquidity dries out often, and moreover at this point where we did get that pullback, that possible entry short, the following week, which is this week, is the NFP release. Okay, so those are the reasons why I chose to take a more conservative entry approach. Alright, so in terms of this hypothetical long trade that I'm waiting to form, there are some possible levels I'm looking at in which this long trade could possibly form. So let's go over to the monthly chart. Alright, so on this monthly chart, at a basic level, price is stuck between two gaps. So the upper gap is this small gap right here at this level right here. Now this gap is constructed from many smaller gaps in the historical price of this monthly chart, and more of this medium-sized gap on this lower level right here. So at a basic level, I'm expecting that hypothetical weekly long trade to form in and around this bottom gap level right here. And moreover, the reason why I'm expecting price to even reach this medium gap level is on the 4-hour chart. So let's go over there. Okay, so on this 4-hour chart, there was a legitimate HNS that formed right here, with the stop loss at this right shoulder's pivot high right here, and its main target being the target height level, roughly in these areas right here. So in other words, there's short-term short strength, at least this height target at this level right here. And now as long as this right shoulder stop loss level is not touched, in 2 weeks ago, that pullback right up to that stop loss level did not reach the stop loss level at this right shoulder's pivot high. So this 4-hour HNS for the time being is showing short-term short strength. So as long as there's no pullback to this right shoulder stop loss level, I could expect short-term short strength at least down to this target height level right here, which coincidentally coincides with that monthly medium gap level at these levels right here. So since there's a projection of short strength right down to this target high stop loss level for the time being, and there's a strong monthly gap level at this level right here, I'm expecting that weekly long trade to form roughly in these areas. Okay, so let's go back to the weekly chart. Okay, so on this weekly chart, let me just sum this up for you. So like I showed you earlier, price is basically in a range with a monthly gap on the top end right here in these levels, and an even bigger gap on the monthly chart right at these bottom levels right here. Okay, and moreover, there was a 4-hour HNS that formed in this level right here. And as long as that right shoulder stop loss is not hit, it will likely apply short-term short strength right down to its target height levels, roughly in this area right here. And for the time being, I'm expecting a weekly long trade to form in around these levels. Now, when this hypothetical long trade forms, I'm going to measure its long strength against the short strength of the last short trade right here. And if this long trade is stronger than the last weekly short trade, then I'm willing to take a long entry with the stop loss at this pivot low right here, and its main target at the weekly short trade's pivot high stop loss level right here. And on the other hand, if this long trade is weaker than the last weekly short trade, then I'll be waiting for a pullback as much as possible so I could take a short entry with the stop loss at this pivot high right here, and its main target being at the hypothetical weekly long trade stop loss level right here, and perhaps moreover extension targets right down to the previous weekly long trades stop loss level at this pivot low right here. Okay, alright, so that's it for the midweek analysis. I hope you guys have a great rest of the week, and thanks for watching. Okay, bye.